It is 3:30. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll begin with the roll call.
Mayor Sue Patterson,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warren Dickert,
Present.
Councillor Harold Fleet,
Present.
Councillor Dave Hawking,
Present.
Councillor Carol Hudson, present, Councillor Brandon Cable, Councillor Brandon Cable, can you hear? We can see you, so we will go with present. Councillor Susan Zackel. Present.
Okay, all members of council are present and accounted for, and Councillor Cable is online. So we will have our land acknowledgement now. As we work toward reconciliation with Indigenous people, we begin our meeting today by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. And further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. So welcome to our special council meeting for Monday, December 16th, 2024. Good afternoon, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? Of course, if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. So I do want to explain to council that if we do not conclude this special meeting by 3:55, we are going to adjourn this meeting and then reconvene after our regular meeting that starts at 4 o'clock. Just so you're aware that you're not being rushed for decisions, we will just have a motion to adjourn and then reconvene after the regular meeting. So item 4, we do not have any additions or deletions. Item 5, we do not have any delegations. So we'll start with 6 staff reports. 6.1 is report DC 1524. The subject is the current 2025 budget status. It's from Chris Walker, our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer. And I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor before it is highlighted. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Zackel. Yes. Before I ask you to speak, I do want to remind council when we are discussing certain items to be aware that if there is anything confidential or close to the line with human resources, we will stop and go in camera. We need to be very careful with that because this is a public meeting. Okay, Chris, yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council may remember on December 9th, we had a special meeting to approve the budget. During that meeting, we had 2 separate resolutions for additional reductions to our 2025 proposed budget. The first was the listing that the staff had presented with 56,200. And then the second one was a resolution after you reviewed the aquatics information, and a further 4,100 was reduced for closing Saturdays during the months of July and August. This additional reduction of 60,300 reduced the budget levy to 9,801,000, which is an increase of 698,600 over the 2024 levy. And that's a 6.67%. That would result in $80.12 a year for every 100,000 of assessment, which works out to 22 cents a day. However, during that meeting, the actual budget was not confirmed because it was the council direction with regards to the 95,000 that was currently in the economic development budget towards the launch pad being allocated and how it was to be done. And it went back and forth. And at that point, it was defeated and the amended budget was not approved. So we are bringing this back because we're showing you that the two resolutions that you did approve during that meeting has resulted in putting it down to $9,801,000. We are recommending that this $95,000 remain in the 2025 budget. However, council would provide a direct separate motion on how this money is to be allocated in 2025. We provided you information at that time about the current deficit through the loans, the 2023 deficit and the ongoing 2024 deficit currently underway. It was about 114,000 as of December 9th that the town would ultimately be responsible for should Launchpad remain active and be unable to repay and or cease to exist. The decision whether to contribute to, hold back any monies, et cetera, to Launchpad should not affect the amount of 95,000 currently budgeted in 2025, which is part of the overall 9.8 million. Because based on the outstanding amounts due to the town and the direction from council regarding this minimum 95 currently budget would be required for any of the scenarios council may proceed with, such as repayment of a loan, transfer to reserves, payment to Launchpad fully or partially. There was some talk during that meeting that we didn't want to use all general reserves, so 95,000 would offset some of those general reserves. But if they're already at 114, you're still going to be short 20,000 if everything were to cease as of today, which we're hoping it does not. But that's entirely up to council how they wish to do that. So, like I said, if there were no money put in the 25 budget and you decide to take out that $95,000 and not proceed, we would still have these deficits hanging over the town's budget and financial statements in the end, regardless of what happens. So there was also attachment A that was provided to this report from the Launchpad partnerships regarding their application for the skills development funding. And that was provided for council because I guess during that meeting, some information was noted and staff did not have the information available to you at that time. So that was brought forward and attached to this report. And also on page 5, it is the total listings of that 60,300 that council approved through 2 resolution motions. So the financial implications is that the unconfirmed council direction with respect to the 95,000 allocated in the economic development budget needs to be addressed. If it's left in the existing budget with direction to be provided by separate resolution at this meeting or at a later date, the budget could be passed with the 7.67% increase over the 2024 levy. Please note that whether or not funds are provided directly to Launchpad in 2025, there will be an impact to the town, as the outstanding debt from 2022 is still 63,400. The 2023 deficit was 30,900, and currently we are now about 22,000. We had said at that time it was a 19.6. If the budget is not approved, it will delay the implementation of capital and operation projects, and we anticipate this delay could result in a minimum of 6 weeks, which could impact overall project cost and contractor availability. So our recommendation is that this report, DCS 15-24, the current 2025 budget status, be received by council, and that the 2025 budget in the amount of $9,801,000 with a 7.67% levy increase be approved as presented, with the exception that council provides direction on how to allocate the 95,000 currently in the 2025 economic development budget that is earmarked for Launchpad purposes via a separate resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So is there any questions about that resolution? Everyone understands? If we pass this resolution, that means we pass the budget, and then we will have a separate motion for the 95,000. Okay. All right. Open for questions. So we'll call the vote. Oh, Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope that the audio will come through. Please let me know if it is not. I believe that clarity is important, and with this being our final meeting for 2024, it is important that we are clear with the Launchpad Board about town funding for 2025. At our meeting last week, Deputy Mayor Dicker did an excellent job of summarizing the numerous ways that the programs offered at Launchpad are similar to skills training opportunities offered by unions, school boards, and post-secondary institutions. With the town struggling to maintain core services due to increasing costs, I believe that it is imperative that we critically examine the assortment of services that we provide. As we noted in the budget report last week, we have exceeded the point that we can no longer provide the current services and initiatives required and desired without increasing taxes considerably or reducing or removing services completely. And so after a great deal of thought and contemplation about the town's role and responsibility with respect to Launchpad as a skills training center, I would like to propose an amendment to the motion as follows. That the 2025 budget in the amount of $9,801,000 with a 7.67% levy increase be approved, and that the $95,000 currently in the 2025 economic development budget under transfer to YATC be reallocated to cover Launchpad's outstanding loan from 2022, the unaccounted for 2023 deficit, and the accumulating 2024 deficit.
Thank you. So Councillor Cable has an amendment. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Deputy Mayor Dickert. So I will open it up for discussion on the amendment only. Deputy Mayor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I was a little surprised the way the original motion was mentioned, and then to have schedule or attachment A in with all of our information, because to me that was trying to lead our decision-making in a different direction that was falling outside of what the motion was. So I think that this amendment is necessary because of the way the information has been presented to us. The attachments, the letters and everything, to me, are a clear indication that we're being guided one way or another here with the spending. And I think that that's caused this need to have the amendment because the information is there. Therefore, I think we need to deal with it tonight.
Thank you. Sherry, our CAO, has a comment.
So as Chris mentioned, the information in attachment A was simply provided to provide you with all the information that staff did not have before them last week when the comments were made about the partnerships with those bodies. There was no ulterior motive or intent with providing that other than giving you the information that wasn't available by staff last week. And if I may add further, I think Chris has been really clear, as was the mayor, I think it was the mayor at the beginning. The intent here is that you'll have two separate motions, one to approve the budget with the $95,000 included. But the second part is that by separate motion, you will decide how that $95,000 is dealt with. The reason for that, and I may defer to Clerk Vicky here a little bit, is that just it makes things simpler and does not complicate things in the future should there be a reconsideration of any motions. Would that be accurate, Vicky?
That would be correct. The purpose of splitting this motion to provide direction specifically for the 95,000 is so that if the budget was approved as the status currently exists with that 95,000 contained within it, that the full budget would not then be brought back for reconsideration should that need to happen in the future, that you're providing direction specifically for the 95,000. However, council may wish to, that it's not necessarily then, it's just providing a clear means of direction to staff dealing with that outside of the regular budget motion.
Deputy Mayor Dickert.
I still, for the reasons I mentioned, I still feel that the amendment should stand and that they've given us the information that they want to share. I think we can deal with it tonight.
Okay, and that is the plan to deal with it.
I mean, with the amendment included.
Yes. So, Vicky, are you able to repeat that amendment, just so we're all clear?
The amendment to the main motion is that the 95,000 currently in the 2025 economic development budget under transfer to YATC be reallocated to cover Launchpad's outstanding loan from 2022, unaccounted for 2023 deficit, and accumulating 2024 deficit.
So everyone's clear. And we have a mover and a seconder for the amendment, Councillor Hockey.
If I just may put it in my own words, Clerk Vicky, so basically what this is saying, if we pass the amendment, we pass the budget, but in doing so, we allocate no money to the operating portion of Launchpad. It's geared into certain areas, and they would be starting with an operating budget of no support from council. Am I correct in that interpretation?
That would be correct based on the intent of the amended motion before you. Unless Chris has other information to share.
Through you, your worship, that 95,000 would not be sufficient to cover the three items that the council is asking for that allocation. It would definitely cover the loan that's outstanding of 63,600. It may cover the 30,900 shortfall from 2023, but it will not cover the 22,000 currently outstanding for 2024. So we're about $116,728.12 as of today. So that 95,000 will be short, at least 21,000.
Councillor Hockey.
Would it be appropriate for me to speak against the motion? This point in time?
You may.
Okay,
The amendment?
against the amendment.
Yes.
So basically, I'm in favor of the budget, but I'm not in favor of the amendment. So can I speak against the amendment? Or does,
Yes,
okay,
you may.
thank you. I have a prepared statement and I'd like to share it with you. It has a bit of a historical perspective. After our budget meeting last Monday night, I reflected on the discourse surrounding the Launchpad. I immediately had a flashback to similar situations that I, as a counselor in the mid-80s, dealt with the Aquatic Center. In the mid-80s, the town had to build a new pool, and they had to decide between replacing the outdoor pool, which is now the deck, or build an indoor pool. Two groups of people formed, those for the indoor pool and those against the indoor pool. I can still read distinctly comments directed to me. We can't afford it. It's too costly. Why can't kids swim in the Saugeen River like I used to do? We don't need year-round swimming programs. You play hockey in the wintertime. The indoor pool group saw the potential of an indoor pool. An economic driver attracting people to shop and dine in our town. An emergency partnership would develop between JDSS and the rec department, where every student at JDSS took a compulsory swim program in their phys ed program. So at the end, every student in JDSS could swim. They could see the pool as being a hub for all kinds of social gatherings and finally a source of employment. The anti-pool sentiment grew to the point where the council of the day support started to wane. Fortunately, the timing was right. A municipal election was held. The results saved the indoor pool project, and the anti-indoor pool sentiment was dispelled. Forward 35 years, and I'm looking at issues surrounding the Launchpad. I admit the enormity of the new pool is a little more consequential than the Launchpad, but it doesn't take away from similar attitudes. Comments like it's too costly. There's nothing going on up there. It's a duplication of services. Similar to the pool situation, there is another group in our community who can see the potential value of the Launchpad. Last week, we met with a group of enthusiastic board directors committed to a balanced budget. We read endorsements from Grey County Economic Development and Tourism from Savannah. We've received endorsements from OEAP, union groups, Luna 1059, Ironworkers 736. and a good endorsement from Grey Bruce Adult Learning Center. All of these letters to support a willingness to establish future partnerships and linkages with a Launchpad. Many can see the Launchpad become an entry point for those seeking trade skill development leading to apprenticeship. Launchpad has had to deal with significant staffing problems, which in turn has given a net negative impact on the revenue stream. Denying the funding for Launchpad in 2025 is in essence denying them the opportunity to put Launchpad on a solid foundation for future growth. I would like to pose the questions to those who want to defund Launchpad. With no Launchpad to serve as a catalyst for trade skill development, what is your substitute going to be? Or you just walk away from any responsibility to trade skill development in our community? Hanover is open for business and supports initiatives that contribute to a workforce and human capital attractions, the development and retention, promotes a strong and diversified commercial industrial sectors and employment opportunities for professionals and youth. And most importantly, it supports initiatives that represent our new economy, focusing on information, technology, and innovation. Excuse me. I view the Launchpad as one of the many soft service programs the town collective collects to levy for support. Collectively, they define our town and support a quality of life that attracts newcomers to our town. I have stated this before, and I think it's worth repeating. There is no other soft service delivery program in our community that mandates it to break even, except for the Launchpad. So let's take a look at the cost for One Last Chance. One last chance to show us that they can make a go of it in 2025. I base this cost on the average home assessment of $219,900 and our current levy. So for $2 a week, I repeat, for the average homeowner, $2 a week, our board, should say the Launchpad board, can work through their commitment to have a balanced budget at the end of 2025, and our Launchpad is still a functional group. In my opinion, the decision to defund the Launchpad is not only short-sighted, but it's one that you will regret long-term. So let's do the right thing. Let's invest $2 a week from an average homeowner into the Launchpad. It's a worthy investment. Please give them one last chance to prove to council, and more importantly, to the greater community, that Launchpad is a viable and successful entity in the town of Hanover that prides itself on being a progressive community committed to quality life for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hocking. And Councillor Sackle, I realize your hand is up to speak, but we are at 3:54. So I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting so we can reconvene after our regular meeting, which means our budget is not approved for our regular meeting reports. So I need someone to move that when this meeting adjourns, it adjourned to meet immediately following the adjournment of the regular council meeting of December 16th, 2024 at 3:55. I need a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Dickert and Councillor Hudson, all in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned.